kids. This is Christina Previck. A lot of you probably know me already. I have a law firm in New Jersey, and I practice exclusively divorce and family law. My guest is Alison Leslie. She is also a New Jersey divorce lawyer with an office in Morristown. And thanks for joining me, Alison.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's get started. I start every interview out really the same with the hashtag FemSquire series. And where did you go to college, and what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
So I went to college at Bucknell University, which is in the heart of Pennsylvania, in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, which is known for international paper, big federal prison, and Bucknell. So it's definitely interesting. I didn't know what I wanted my major to be, but I knew I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in school. Prior to that, I actually I went to Villa Walsh, which is a private Catholic girls' school in Morristown, and
that explains a lot,
I think that does explain a lot, right? So, and Tina and I have known each other for years. So, in any event, she knows all the deepest, darkest secrets, I think.
I don't know about
that. But in any event, I went there where I had a class of 40 people. And you really learned a lot about being independent, being fearless, being aggressive, and really kind of forming your own identity so that when I went to college, a lot of people learn that in college. I feel like I learned that when I was in high school. So in college, although I didn't know what my major was, I did know I wanted to go to law school.
Why?
And I didn't know what type of law I wanted to do because I thought that I would do great at trying cases. I loved acting, I loved speaking, and I loved talking in front of a group of people. And so really, I always thought that I would be really good on my feet in a live situation like that.
So why didn't it have to be law? Why couldn't it have been acting or performing in some other capacity?
Because my parents wouldn't pay for acting, and they were really
okay. There we go. All right. I mean, like stripper could have been on the list too.
I produced a play when I studied abroad in Oxford. I produced a play that sold out within 10 days, something like that. It was fantastic. It was The Crucible. It was actually one of my professional accomplishments that I'm really, really proud of. But and as much as I would like to be a producer, you could still do that with a law degree if you wanted to do that. But I just felt that was more of a good fit for me.
And did that ever waver once you made that decision?
Yes, my first semester of law school.
Really? Okay.
About halfway through my first semester in law school, I said, "Oh my God, I hate this. I love the people I'm in school with, but I hate." Bucknell was a much different experience, a much different educational experience, as was Oxford. You sat in a class, you had input, everything was very collaborative. Whereas in law school, at least your first semester, it's the professor teaching to you absorbing it. And even when they had the Socratic method, because some classes did still have that, they wanted the answer that they wanted. They didn't want you to think and come up with the answer. And it really was just more rote. And I truly was not a big fan of it. So
I didn't find it to be very collaborative either. I felt like the students were all extremely competitive with each other.
Some people were, but I wasn't in that group. I like to describe myself as I'm a back of the class kind of person. There's the front of the class people, and there's the back of the class people. And I was a back of the class person. I had the same group of people that I sat with, in almost every class. We went to the library. That was kind of our, we had this our group, right? But we were not the people that answered the questions, that raised our hands. We were the back of the class people. And I'm actually still friendly with a lot of them too. And they're ironically a lot of the same people who own their own law firms right now. Many of us did not go into big law. We really are the ones that are still, the small firm people or the mid-sized firm people. So it's kind of ironic with some of that stuff.
Well, I was going to ask you what you meant by the front of the class and the back of the class, because I always sat on the front. It wasn't because I was some nerd. I wasn't like, oh, pick me, I know the answer. I sat on the front because I thought that the professor's perception was that if you sat on the front, you weren't trying to avoid being called on, and that they would pick on the people in the back. And I found that to be mostly true.
Not in Seton Hall. Seton Hall, they were the ones that raised their hand.
Yeah. Okay.
People were the one passing notes saying, "You got your manuals, right? Is that what we did?" Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I was unhappy, and I had reached out to one of my professors, Paula Francisi, and I said, I'm going to quit. I hate it. I can't believe this. This was my life choice. And the one thing I always knew was I wanted to go to law school. I can't stand it. I'm leaving." And she said, "Allie, don't quit." She said, "What do you want to do? What makes you happy?" I said, "When I produced this play, I was happy." And she said, "I work at Court TV as a consultant. Let me see if I can get you an internship there. But you have to make a deal with me and you have to stick through your first year." So that's what we did. I interned at Court TV for about 2 years there, and I loved my time there, and it was fantastic. And I learned a ton of stuff. I mean, at that point, I was a PA and then an AP at some point too. And it was really fantastic. Met tons of famous people, tons of famous lawyers, and you watch trials all day. So, I always credit my evidence skills to watching, some of the biggest trials at that time.
So
meeting some of the most famous people.
What were you doing?
I was behind the scenes. I was in the production booth. I was writing scripts. I was reading trials, writing scripts for the commentators, writing questions for the commentators, getting input from them too, and doing everything from being in the production section to reviewing the tapes of the day.
So I'm sort of curious, how did you end up not pursuing that? How was that not your continued path?
So I always find that I always just feel that I'm a lucky person. I try to be open to whatever advice people want to give to me. I try to talk to everybody, and I really believe that everything happens for the right reason. So one of the producers at the time was a lawyer. And she said, "Listen, you have a job here after you graduate. Don't quit." She said, how much in debt are you?" And at that point, I was probably about $20,000 in debt. She goes, "Wouldn't you rather be $60,000 in debt and have a piece of paper that you can use for anything?" And I thought that made a lot of sense.
Yeah. Were you still considering quitting?
I kept it up for another 2 years. And then I debated about whether, she also said, if you want to practice, you need to get your clerkship. And if you want to clerk, you need to do it right out of law school, because it's much harder to go from the field of television into private practice. And she said, "Listen, you clerk for a year. You don't like it, you give me a call. We'll see what we have for you." And I got a clerkship out of law school, and the rest of it was written.
So you were still considering quitting law school even while you were working at Court TV?
Yes.
Oh man, I wish the story was different. I wish you had said, "Yeah, I quit and I went on to be the superstar at Court TV." Well, Court TV doesn't exist anymore. I liked Court TV.
Yeah, a lot of people did. It was fantastic. You would get actually addicted to the trials at the time. But I mean, I worked with Nancy Grace, June Grosso, Raymond Brown, who was fantastic. And you would see him at law school and whatnot, and you were like, "Oh my God, he actually does practice. He's a spectacular lawyer." And look at the commentary. I mean, met Johnny Cochran. I mean, tremendous attorneys. Beth Karras, really tremendous attorneys. And I was really fortunate for that.
I love Nancy Grace. She's always so serious, though. Have you seen the skits on Saturday Night Live of her? Is she really like that in real life?
I haven't seen the skits, but I will tell you that she answered whatever question I had to do. She answered them.
Wow. She is fierce. Oh, maybe you could hook me up. Maybe she could come on here and I could interview her. That'd be awesome. Oh, God. Okay, so anyway. All right, so I have heard this saying that if you hated law school, you'll love practice and vice versa. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
absolutely. And I'll tell everybody I hated law school, but I love the people I was around. I really like I sought out good professors. I sought out, Kevin Kelly was at my house, a month ago to do a concert. I mean, I think you have to make the best of any situation to kind of find the best part of it. I think anybody can kind of go through something as long as you have something to kind of hold on to at that time.
Yeah. So you got through it, because I don't know, there's not too many people I think say they really love law school. There's a few. But you got through it, you finished. And I think the type of people that go to law school, it's just, I think in our nature, not to quit. Even if you hate it, you're still going to finish. You might go do something else, but you're going to finish, right?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong too, because I think some people really do make a different career choice. And if they stop it and it's not for them, that's okay too.
Yeah. So you did your clerkship. Was it for a family judge?
I did. I clerked for Judge Schaefer in Morris County. He actually was sick and actually passed away during my clerkship. So I was able to clerk for all the other family judges and got to see their styles while he was out sick. And then when he subsequently passed away, and then I was released from my contract early so I could start my family law job first.
Oh, wow.
And I went to Vegas before then. So I think a trip to Vegas clears anybody's head. So
yeah. Or makes you just not want to come back. I'm not sure. I haven't heard from the people that stayed.
But so you very quickly, wait, really quickly though, ironically, talking about this Vegas trip, I'm literally in a taxi outside the Paris, and all of a sudden I hear somebody like screaming my name. A friend of mine from law school, a back of the classroom kind of guy, right? He refers me a ton of cases every year. His buddy, who was next to him, also, we hardly said anything to each other, but we always talk about like that moment in Vegas when we like ran into each other. Like, it's just very funny.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Facebook now. I have all these friends on Facebook, and I don't really know a lot of them, and I'll see them out somewhere, and we'll just, like look at each other like, knowing glances, but you don't know them.
See, I don't friend anybody I don't know on Facebook. If I don't think I have that connection with you, I don't friend you on Facebook.
Well, my rule is if I wouldn't go to lunch with you, you're not on there. If I couldn't sit through,
I'm glad I've been on there for some time.
Yeah, right. There's too many people on there. I probably have to do a purge. But what was your first job out of the clerkship?
I worked at a boutique family law firm in Essex County, but I really wanted to go back to Morris County. And so I went back to a firm in Morris County. And then 2 years later, I was just not happy. I felt that there was a better way to practice law. Partners would come in, partners would see the client, they would hand it off to the associate, and the client wouldn't see the partner until like a major court part. And the associate would be doing all of the work. You would have that constant interaction with them. And either the partner would show up at, the big court appearance and the associate wasn't there, and then the client would feel really lost. And I just didn't think that was the right way to practice family law, when what we do is such a personal approach, and it needs to be personal. Like these are major decisions that your clients are having. They need that hand-holding. They need that person that's telling them what to do. They need that expertise too, of not just that stranger seeing them that hasn't seen them since their initial consult. And when I voiced my, very Jerry Maguire-ish, this is how we have to do it, it was met with, and go do it. So I did.
Good. Well, and what firms were these? Can we talk about that?
No, I wouldn't do that. And
all right. So look, that's not an unusual story. I mean,
and that was not my experience actually at the first law firm. I will be very clear with that.
So you had the two firms, and then you went out on your own.
28. I went on my own. My feeling was no mortgage and no kids. At that point in time, I knew I always wanted to be a partner. I knew these weren't the people I was going to be partners with, and that's okay. People make business decisions all the time of who they want to get into business with and who they don't. I'm an only child, and so I've just always been very independent. Let me just hand it to me. Let me just do it myself, and I still am that way. But that being said, I really felt that I could do it this better way, and that I could do it by individual personalized attention, and that was the way I wanted to run my firm. Not the way everybody runs their firms. It's the way I was going to run my firm.
So did you get the trial work you wanted?
I do. Yeah. No, I've tried many cases. I've tried many cases. I've settled many cases. I'm always prepared for trial, but I really try to come up with creative solutions for each person's family, each person's individual circumstances. Well, I have numerous cases.
Did you want to go into family law? I mean, how did you pick family law?
So when I was a kid, every Friday night, we would always watch Dallas and Falcon Crest.
Okay. And
I love the drama. And so when I was working at a firm when I was in college, I was actually just answering phones. And one of the attorneys came over to me and was like, hey, do you know how to type? And of course I know how to type, but at that time there were people who did not know how to type. He goes, can you just retype this and just put it on the letterhead and just give it back to me with client's email or client's note, something like that. So I'm like, oh my God, he did what? She did what? Oh, this is fantastic. Like, you get paid to deal with this? And I loved it. And so that's what attracted me to family law. It really was. You can't make up this stuff that we do. You know that. You can't make it up.
Do you still think it's interesting, though?
I love it. Oh, yeah. This coronavirus stuff, I love it. I love it. I was in court a week and a half ago. Not in court, I was videoing, arguing in order to show cause. But we always have novel issues. So the novel issue we had then was, should parenting time be suspended based upon the stay-at-home order that Governor Murphy has placed in place? How does that evolve? What I love about family law is that it really encompasses all other types of law. One of the first cases I ever worked on was for a famous musician dealing with the equitable distribution, which is the distribution of copyrights and the revenue from that and what they had sold and what they hadn't. It was putting in the perks that are in an entertainment. Generally, when you have a concert, you have a venue, right? There's a whole list of asks that the talent asks for. And the question is do we add that into income? Is that a perk that should be added into income when we're talking about different things? You know, there's so many different aspects of law that you can deal with within the realm of family law. Sometimes it's very straightforward and sometimes it's a formula, but more times than not, I don't think a formula is a good idea because each case is so different.
Yeah, it has to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But I feel like when I first started out in family law, I was like you. I thought it was exciting. I was tickled by all the stories. And obviously, I like to hear people's stories. That's why I do this. But I did feel like after a while, it just started to feel like the same story again and again and again, you know? And I started to feel like I was just part of this dysfunctional sort of play. Because we see a lot of that. We see people that aren't exactly interested in resolving things in a fair way. They just want what they want. And they hate their ex, right? So they're highly emotional and they want vengeance. I mean, what do you think? Do you see that, or do you just see that in a completely different light than I do?
So I'm at a point in my career where, and I'm fortunate, I don't have to take every case that walks in my door. So, you know, and I'm generally referral based, which I think is really, really helpful. So what I do think is that it depends upon the certain client, and I'm not every client's cup of tea. I'm not. So the clients that are super angry, the clients that they just want revenge, I'm not their attorney. Now, the clients who maybe have a valid reason for what I deem to be valid for why they are super angry, yeah. Or maybe there's a different way to around it. Maybe there's a different way that, maybe somebody's really angry because they didn't get the same consideration from their spouse when something major was going on. A lot of times you see that with the post-judgment, you're kind of able to talk them down a little bit more, or things that happen after the divorce. You know, that's a little bit different. But no, I still am excited. I'm excited when a new client walks in the door. I'm excited to hear their story. We go to Ireland every summer for about a month, and it's fantastic. And they have a saying there, do you sing or do you play? And I really do neither. I'm just like you, I'm a storyteller. So I like to hear people's stories so that I can tell their stories back to them. And that, to me, I think is really fulfilling. I think it's really fulfilling when you come up with a resolution for their case that's really outside of the box. That, you know, the law gives us guidance, but then, as you know, anything that we can do with settlement, we really can be as creative as we want, as long as it really suits the parties' families. And that it also depends on who your adversary is too,
Yeah. And how long have you been practicing law?
I graduated in 2001, so long enough and short enough.
Are you going to make me do math?
Not a rising star anymore.
Yeah.
I still think I'm a young woman. I'm pretty sure that I'm still 27, maybe 22. I think you are too.
I know. I feel that way too. I didn't really get to have a birthday this year because all this coronavirus stuff was happening, so we just skipped it. So
we're going to celebrate afterwards.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
I think that means you get to subtract a year.
Yeah, I think I do. I think so. I don't even want to talk. We can't even talk about it. That's a touchy subject for me. But yeah, I do still feel 27 too. A little smarter, but I don't feel much different. I remember when I was in my 20s, people would say, you're not going to feel different when you're in your 40s and 50s. It's going to be the same. The years will fly. And, of course, I thought they didn't know what they were talking about, but I have found that is very true. But I digress. So you've been practicing about 20 years. And how would you say the practice of law has changed over those years? Do you feel like it has?
Oh, it absolutely has. Absolutely. And especially running my own firm too has. So I opened in 2005. At that time, the internet wasn't as prevalent. But I was young. So I was like, I need a website. Oh, look, I need a website. I need a presence and whatnot. And so I was able to find a fantastic digital marketer at that time. And my website was fantastic. I would later, he would later use my images and whatnot for promos and whatnot, which is very helpful. But at the same point in time in 2005, you also had a lot of the same marketing of going out, shaking hands, meeting people. So when I started my firm, I literally I got business cards, which by the way, you had to go to the printer to sit down with the graphic designer and print, and then you had to pick them up. And I had red on mine, and that was like the premier color. Oh my gosh, you've got color on your business card. Now everybody's got color, right? But at the time, nobody had color. Oh my gosh, it's red. That's fantastic. I was like, yeah, it's red for my hair. See, Alison Leslie, redhead. There you go. And that was my whole thing. Like all of my marketing had red on it. Red was my color, and that's what I did. So when I got my business cards, I contacted a really good friend of mine who at the time was like a rainmaking marketer. She was an attorney who didn't want practice, and that's what she taught. And I said, I don't know what to do. And she goes, just go out and have lunch with people, dummy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes common sense. So I made a list of all the solos in my area, and I had lunch with them. Every day I went out to lunch, and I learned how they practiced law. And I met them, and we sat down, and this way they got to know me. And I got a ton of business doing that.
Well, and then now we say that's how to do it. It really does just come down to networking.
And I think it's more personal, so that we didn't have Facebook then, we didn't have LinkedIn, we didn't do any of that stuff. And at the end of the day, I still do think that the people who genuinely know you are always really the best resources for business, best resources for business tips and tricks and that kind of stuff. I texted you this week about a question on something, and that's what you do. That's what you do. You reach out to your friends, you remember who your friends are, and you ask them. And that's the way it should be.
But do you think that we can't really just ignore social media? I mean, social media now is everything. We're on Facebook right now.
So I don't think you ignore it, but I don't think you forget the people that you know in person.
Yeah, I think you have to do both. But it seems like to me, I spend a lot of time on marketing and advertising because I actually really enjoy it. But it seems like it can get really overwhelming. Okay, so I have to network and I have to go to events and I have to stay in touch with people. And now I have to add this. Now I have to add all this social media stuff. And there's a tremendous learning curve, which I'm still learning how to maneuver my way around social media. And everybody else is on social media, right? I mean, we're bombarded all day, especially now because everyone's home and everybody's posting. And the firms and the people that were ignoring social media before, now they're using social media. So I don't know about you, but I'm seeing people advertising on social media that never did before because they're home.
And I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
So when I started my practice, I was really one of the only games in town that was doing that. There was a couple of attorneys, but not a ton. And now everybody is. And
Yeah.
I think you nailed it when you said, I'm still learning it, because you constantly have to learn. And that's the whole thing with running your own practice. You constantly have to learn. You constantly have to look to see what else people are doing, and how people are moving and shifting it. I mean, it really is. There is a business to what we do, and you can't ever forget that this is a business. It's not just it's not just, wouldn't it be nice if we could just practice law? Oh, that'd be great, right? What a novel idea. Can I just sit in a desk and practice law? No, I have a business to run.
Well, you can, though. I mean, you definitely, this is a subject I talk about all the time, is that when you start your own firm, whether you realize it at the time or not, you've got two jobs now. You're a lawyer and you're a business owner and a manager, and you have to run your business. So I still have this debate with people sometimes, and I'm going to say they're generally older attorneys that will argue with me that, you're a lawyer, you have a law firm, and they just sort of deny that it's a business, but it is. You have to make money. If you're not making money, then what are you doing, right? I mean, and it's not about being greedy. It's about supporting yourself and thriving. So, but I think I'm preaching to the choir.
You are, but I kind of look at it a different way, because we sell our time, right? That's what we do. We sell our time with how you bill, with your increments and whatnot. And my time has value. And so, I have two kids. I have a stepson. I have a husband. So for me, my time is very valuable. And so every year I block out, what do I value in my life this year? What things do I value? Because you value your clients, you value your business, you value the ability and the privilege to practice law, but I also value my free time, my vacation time, my time with my kids. I'm not valuing homeschool. I am not valuing homeschool, but it's really awesome.
Yeah, you're like, this is why I didn't become a teacher. Confirmed.
No, my mother was a teacher, actually, and she wanted me to become a teacher. And I took one class of education. I'm like,
yeah.
There's a reason why she's a teacher and I am not.
So when you say that you have to balance it, how do you do that? Because there's only so many hours in a day. So if as you say, you're selling your time, because I think you're selling a little more than your time, you're also selling what you can do in that time. Because that's why you and, the guy down the street who maybe isn't as good at practicing law as you are, maybe not as creative, maybe not as mindful, maybe doesn't have an emotional IQ that can translate to crafting a creative settlement, right? Because that's all part of it. I don't think their time is quite as valuable as your time. So it's not just the time.
Nobody's time is as valuable as your time. My time is not as valuable as your time is. No one's is, because it should be of value to you. And that should be the most important thing.
So how do you balance that? There's only so many hours in a day. So, and look, I don't want to make everything about money, but some things are about money, and you have to balance, I want or need to make a certain amount of money, and that translates to a certain number of hours. And, you're also a business owner. So you're doing marketing, you're doing networking, you're doing all the other kinds of things like that. So when you say what's important to me, it's a personal question for you. What is? I mean, how would you say that you're one of those people that's always at the office and, burning the midnight oil? What's your day like?
As a matter of, those are two different questions. But, so which question do you want me to ask first?
Whichever one you want to answer.
Okay, so my typical day when we are not in quarantine is I get up at 5, I go to the gym, listen to a podcast, and that's my time. Get back home, get ready for the office, make sure the kids are ready, drop them off, and then I'm in the office by 9-ish, and I try not to have any appointments that start at 10. Work through, and then I always try to pick up my kids after school from aftercare.
Okay,
and then cook dinner. And then I'll check emails here and there, but I really, my time in my office is my time in my office, or my time in court, or my time getting ready for court or mediation or whatnot. But I really try to have strict boundaries with those things.
And what staff do you have?
So I have a full-time secretary and I have an associate. My associate went to law school with me, so I've known him for years. He's worked with me for about 10 years now. We know each other in and out. We trust each other. We drive each other crazy. Probably like you and John.
Yes, definitely. He drives me crazy. I'm sure he's listening.
Gabriella, my assistant, I have known her for years. I actually knew her when she worked for a retail job. She was excellent. I thought her family owned the business. She was so good. Everything she does, she really takes ownership of, and she's excellent. So
that's awesome. Hiring and personnel management is not my absolute favorite thing to do at all. How do you feel about that? There are people that like that. I mean, I don't want to speak for my partner, for anyone who doesn't know, but he's one of those people. Like, he's a social person, and he loves to sit at the head of the table and rally up the troops, and that is just not my thing. It's just
I like doing that. But at the same point in time, there's a reason I've always kept my firm small. Some people say they have to grow, they want to grow. That's not my personality, and that's not the firm that I want. I'm a micromanager with certain things, and that's just who I am, and I'm happy with who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think you got to know what you want, right? I think I see a lot of companies just focus so heavily on growing and growing and growing. Like, we're somehow programmed to think that we're supposed to grow and that that's a good thing and that's productive. And I'm finding out that it's not necessarily.
For some people it is. It really depends on what your personality is and what you're creative with. But for me, what we have works.
Yeah. So I'm
comfortable with it, and I'm happy with it.
Where do you
I don't feel this overwhelming need to grow bigger, to grow stronger, whatever. I want to give the best client experience that I can to my clients, and that's where my focus is.
So you feel like you've reached a good place where you can coast. Is that how you feel?
No, I don't think anybody ever coasts, and I don't think anybody should coast. I don't think coasting is ever a good idea. I think you want to get to a point where you're happy with where you are, and I don't think that ever changes. I think it evolves. I think what makes you happy constantly evolves and changes with the times. So I would never call something like that coasting, because I think it's almost a static point, and I don't think you're ever at a static point, or you shouldn't be at a static point. When you're comfortable, I don't think you grow as a person, but I don't think you can constantly be growing in every aspect.
Yeah.
A friend of mine always said that her dad gave her great advice, that you can be anything you want to be in life, but you can't be everything. And so when you're growing in one aspect, you're not going to be able to grow in all of your aspects. So I think that's really where you need to look.
That is. Well, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, men and women, to be everything and be perfect at everything. So tell me, what is your vision for yourself, for your firm, for your personal life? I mean, you're still a young lady, right? Because you're around my age, so you're a young lady. But I mean, you still got a lot of years ahead of you. So what are your goals? What do you want for yourself?
I think I just want to be happy. I know that sounds silly. I don't know. Right now, it's me talking to you over this podcast.
Aw, thank you.
It is. I think everybody deserves to be happy. And I think, as I said to you before, it's really something that's always evolving. What might make you happy now might not 15 years from now. I want to be able to keep practicing. I love practicing. I love being a lawyer. I know some people aren't, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I feel that I have the same enthusiasm from the moment I opened my office doors. The moment you put on you put your name on the record. I love it.
That's great.
I don't want to change.
There's people, and not just lawyers, but all kinds of jobs and professions that aren't happy. And
exactly,
like, life's too short. Life's too short to be miserable.
And that's exactly how I feel too. If you're not happy, change it. Change it.
That's great
Or
advice.
see what will make you happy.
Great role model for your kids. Do they?
Well, they do hear me yelling a lot too, so they're not going to tell you I'm always happy. So you're just catching me at a moment where my husband's got them outside. So.
Oh, good, yeah. Well, we've been on here for a little while. We're going to wrap it up soon. I do end every interview with a series of questions. My list seems to be growing.
Okay.
So what's the best advice that you ever got? Like personal or business? What's something that kind of resurfaces for you often?
There's a couple of them.
Tell me.
One is be nice to everybody. And I haven't always followed that. You catch somebody on a wrong day,
yeah,
something's going to come off of somebody's mouth. And it's certainly come out of my mouth. And I'm sure I made awful first impressions to different people or whatnot. And they just catch you at the wrong moment or whatnot. But I try to be nice to everybody, or everybody that you meet. The biggest one that I have is if somebody offers you a breath mint, take it, because you don't know if they're trying to be nice and you need it.
Well, I usually say, do I need one? Okay, no,
It's not offered to me that often, but I
Okay, yeah, that's useful.
It's actually from law school, not even
I do want to ask you, what's the best business advice you ever got?
Be nice to everybody.
Yeah, it's really true. It sounds so basic, and I definitely don't follow that all the time. I'll feel guilty later, like I could have been a little kinder to that person. But we are human, right? I mean, we're not going to.
We have those moments, and then you have to hope that somebody at least has the grace in their moment to say, you know what, I think they were just having a bad day.
Yeah. And one thing I've learned, it's rarely about you. If someone is mean to you or rude or whatever, it really isn't about you. I think we internalize that, like, I did something, they don't like me. Mm-hmm. We make it always about ourselves, and it's usually not. Okay.
We're lawyers. We like to hear ourselves talk. We generally have a high opinion of ourselves. Like,
yes.
I would say to me, like, nobody likes the sound of my voice more than I do. So.
Well, this is the perfect forum for you then, because this is your interview. So I think I know the answer to this, but if you won $100 million in the lottery and you didn't have to work, you don't have to worry about running a business, you don't have to worry about how much money you're making, what would you do or change?
What do you think my answer would be?
Well, I mean, if you're really as happy as you say you are, then you would keep doing what you're doing.
I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, awesome. You probably
and we joke about it in my office, because when we, a couple times, like, we will buy, lottery tickets and whatnot, office wide, because I share space with another law firm.
Yeah.
And so, I've been there. I have commitment issues, so I've been there on a month to month for the past 14 years. But in any event, so whenever we buy tickets, I was like, we'll still see you tomorrow. Here you go. Here's the tickets. Seeing you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, God. That reminds me of some TV show, Reno 911, where they all thought they won the lottery. And they came to work the next day, like, totally telling each other off, like, every nasty thing they ever thought about each other. And then they realized that they didn't win. I'll have to find that and post it. It's really funny.
That's one of those moments. That's one of those moments where you're like,
maybe I shouldn't have told you that. So if you were writing life's instruction manual, what rule would you have in it? Like, what would be and I know, be nice.
Okay. No, that actually wouldn't be it, because, a lot of people do mistake kindness for weakness.
Yeah.
And I would say it's very telling, but it would actually be, Shakespeare's "To thine own self be true." Sister Marion used to say that to us in English class, and I 100% do that, because at the end of the day, you're the person you have to live with. So if there's a decision or something that comes out of your mouth or something else that you can't live with, that's going to bother you, that's going to eat away at you, then you don't make that. You don't do that action.
Well, I mean, what kind of impact? Because I didn't go to private school. What impact did those nuns make on you? They seem scary, from what I've heard. They're tough women.
So the nuns who taught me are truly the smartest, most intelligent, disciplined, tremendous integrity of role models that I've ever met. Truly. I mean, my mother actually really shaped me a lot too, and she's always been my role model. She went back. She was a teacher, and went back to work when I was in grammar school. My father had a catastrophic stroke when I was in high school, and she continued to work as a teacher. She went back. She got her master's degree, got doctoral credits, and really showed me that having an education really makes you need to have that. But nuns at the same point in time, and during this time, as you're a teenager and as you're looking for structure and looking for role models, these are women who at that time, during the time of the 50s and the 60s, it's a time where a lot of people didn't go to college. And these are women who, becoming a sister in a religious organization was an honor. It was a way it was a profession. It was a real legitimate profession. And they really showed you the type of integrity and dignity that you need to have. They also were so fantastic because a lot of them were, and I'm not really a big religion person, notwithstanding the fact that I do teach CCD to my kids' class, but it's really to make sure that I get them there to CCD. So if I won't tell anybody. If I have to show up and they go, don't tell anybody. But and it is Good Friday, so
that's anyway. Right. It's Good Friday.
But I mean, I'll criticize the Pope here. One of the biggest issues I ever have with him is how he criticizes American sisters, American nuns, and frankly, if he listened to them more often, I think he would probably make better decisions. And how he says that they can't, rise to become a pope, which I think is nonsense. But no, they're just extraordinary, well-educated women who chose this as a profession, who really look towards their students as their own children, and who they wanted to raise and put into just tremendous amounts of self-worth. So, for example, when I started my law firm, so many people told me I couldn't do it. And I knew I could because I believed in myself, because my education told me I could. There was never any doubt that I couldn't do this, that I couldn't make a success out of it. And I completely framed that with the foundation that I was given in high school, and given in high school by these women who simply believed that you could do whatever you wanted to do as long as you worked hard enough, you studied hard enough, and you put the time and your energy into it. So
you didn't feel like your experience, because this is what I hear a lot from people who go to Catholic school, that it's so restrictive. That, that's the joke, is that when the girls leave Catholic school and they go to college, they kind of run wild, right? Like, isn't that the joke? And I won't ask you that question, Alison. I'll ask you that question.
I think you know me long enough. So.
But that's sort of my perception. But again, not having gone, I don't know what it was really like. But it doesn't sound like you had that experience. It doesn't sound like you felt it was restrictive.
So, for example, like, you have to wear a uniform, right? So we had to wear plaid skirts, and we had to wear these white shirts. And when you think about, what does Mark Zuckerberg every day? He wears a uniform. Steve Jobs wears a uniform. So are they that far off in making teenage girls not compare what outfits they're wearing and not compare what they're doing so that they can focus on their studies? There's certain things like that. Yes, it's restrictive because I wear a uniform. I want to wear a uniform. I'd wear a uniform. I'd wear a uniform now if I could, quite frankly, so that it's less choices that I have to make. I've put on 3 different outfits till I can figure out what to do here.
You can wear a uniform.
So
I pretty much do.
I would do the uniform any day. But, there's certain rules and there's certain restrictions. And then, at the end of the day, you decide what works for you. You asked me what my schedule is. I gave you my schedule. For some people, they don't do that, and that works for them. But I think you pick and choose and see and determine what it was.
Yeah. Well, those nuns, man, they're tough. There's something when I see a nun, I feel intimidated. Like if I'm out somewhere and I see a nun, I'm immediately like, I don't even know why. I'm intimidated by them. There are some strong women.
They are remarkably strong. and encourage you to do that. But I'll tell you this, there isn't a single judge that I'm afraid of that I wasn't more afraid of than Sister Doris or Sister Marion. So
did they paddle you? Did they do like, oh God, I went to school in Georgia and they paddled. If this sounds so crazy, doesn't it? I got paddled.
I got hugged.
The class. And it hurt.
I got hugged. I got hugged. You're having a bad day? Come here, let me give you a hug. You're going to get through this. Let me give you a hug. I know it's really hard. Let me give you a hug. Now go back and study harder.
I will say this was in Georgia where I got paddled. So that might explain a lot. All right. I think I know the answer, but what person do you most admire and why?
I don't know. You know, there's so many people. There's so very many people. My mother, my husband, so many people, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You know, it really depends on that time and what you're talking about and where you are. There are certain people, I mean, you know, they rise up from places and in places where they're disadvantaged, and they pick themselves up, they dust themselves off. So many times my clients, they come out of a bad situation, they do it, you know. This week, a friend of mine from law school who picked up the phone to call me when I needed his help for something. I mean, so many different things.
Yeah. I kind of went through a phase where I felt like there weren't many people to admire anymore, but I don't think that's true. I think whatever you look for, you find.
You have to look for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not that obvious.
Yeah. There's kindness in everyone, I think. So what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Everything happens for a reason. You just might not see it at this moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Just wait and see and you'll see it. But everything happens for a reason.
It does. All right, last question.
Okay.
So when you're a little old lady, I like it too. I should just start out with these. So I do a Proust questionnaire sometimes. Do you know what that is?
No.
This is kind of like a Proust questionnaire.
Just like the philosopher?
Yeah. So I didn't exactly know what that was. If you read Vanity Fair magazine, at the last page, they have a Proust questionnaire, and they just ask a series of short questions of a celebrity, and they're very short. They're like, what do you think is the greatest depth of misery? And the whole idea of it is to learn something about that person's character. Mm-hmm. And they're really interesting. I love doing them. Maybe you should start doing those on here. But this is a good one.
With all my spare time.
What's that?
With all my spare time.
Yes, all your spare time. And we all have, well, some people might smack me if I say that, because the people that are homeschooling, I don't know how much spare time they have. But when you're a little old lady, well, first of all, you're going to have red hair or gray hair when you're a little old lady?
I will always have red hair.
Okay. So I'm envisioning
you know, my grandmother was rocking the purple and the blue before Lady Gaga was. So
wow.
I in blue.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm envisioning you with your flaming red hair when you're like 95. You're looking back on your life. Like what do you see? Like what are, the big accomplishments that you're looking back on fondly?
Oh, that's so hard.
Because some of them might not have happened yet. I mean, I hope that some of them haven't happened yet, because you got a ways to go.
I think probably opening my own practice, quite frankly, because even at that time, I was dating my husband at that time, and I remember him saying to me, like, I wish you had a daughter right now so that she could see how proud I am of you. And I think that's definitely going to be one of it. I think it's also going to be resilience to anything. And I would hope it would be to being supportive to, my friends and my mom squad and that type of thing. I don't know. That's really difficult. I think we're going to have to wait and see. I think you're going to have to check in with me in another couple of years and see where we are for that.
I think we'll still be going to Roots for happy hour when we're 95.
That totally works for me.
But I mean, it sounds so morbid, and hopefully it doesn't come across as Debbie Downer, but I do think to myself sometimes just to keep things in perspective and try to focus on bigger things and not trivial things, because I think we all do that. I'll think, if I was on my deathbed right now, what would I really be thinking about? Like, would I be worried that I didn't get my newsletter done? My newsletter is supposed to go out every Saturday and I didn't do it. Or I could have finished some work that I was supposed to do and I didn't do that. And I guess I'll do it next week now. And we kind of get down on ourselves over that stuff. But that's just not the stuff that you're going to be thinking about when you're on your deathbed. I think you're really going to think more about relationships that you had.
I try to check in and say, is this going to matter in a year? Is this going to matter in 5? And that is how I look at different things and look at different opportunities. What is the impact of this happening right now is?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I've gotten out of this coronavirus experience, being at home, because I just kind of went on autopilot, and I would get up early in the morning. I just work all day long, and I would find myself just working all day long until basically it was time to go to bed. And that lasted about a week because I could not sustain that. And then I was thinking to myself, well, what am I really doing all day? Do I really have to do all the things I'm doing all day? And when you look at it, you don't. Like, is it going to matter if I put... No. What's that?
There's power in saying no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Yeah. Well, there's plenty more to talk about, Alison, but we've been on here for 1 hour and 7 minutes. Wow, you can talk, Alison.
I'm Irish. I can't help it.
Anyway, this was good. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope that some people learned a few things about you. I did. And thank you.
Well,
I'd love to have you on again.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to have you on again sometime. I like to do roundtable discussions and, find topics to talk about. So if anybody has any ideas or suggestions, I'm happy to hear them. And let's get a bunch of us femme squires on here and have a conversation. Next time, wine, though. Maybe we could do it at night sometime and we have some wine. All right. Well, Toodles, have a great day. And thank you for watching Wake Up Call Live.
Thanks a lot, Christine. I really appreciate it.